Yo, today I'm gonna show you how to make a really simple and good looking cover art for your sample pack or drum kit or maybe even a song. This cover is gonna be really simple and straight to the point so that you don't have to spend time on learning Photoshop and different things. You can just quickly go into Photoshop and make it for yourself or for others. But if you don't wanna learn and you just need a cover really quick, I recommend the Northbound Beats, Prod Gary, Rico Digital, or myself. They have a lot of great designs and for affordable prices, so check them out. So first of all, we're gonna go to Google and go to Pinterest, and we're gonna look for some pictures. We're gonna look for any pictures that look good. We're also gonna need some kind of these details, you know, like the packaging stuff. Also look for Japanese hieroglyphs, or I don't know how to say it.
Hieroglyphs.
They always look good. So yeah, I'm gonna just spend some time looking for pictures and we'll be back. If you're struggling to find cool pictures, just go to Pinterest and find me as Wymeo and just click on all pins. Honestly, I have so many pins that you can just scroll through, and if you click on one that you like, you can always scroll down and click on another one, and it's going to give you even more and even more, and you're going to go down this rabbit hole forever, and you'll definitely find some pictures that you like. So I'm just going to pick out of my own pins. The thing about Pinterest is a lot of people grab these like very popular pictures and they grab the first one, but the trick is just dig deeper. Like the like producers just dig through old samples to find that one sample. The same for this. The longer you look, the more you're gonna see and the better picture you're just gonna choose. So like save 20 pictures and choose like 2 out of them. Don't stick to the first one you saw. Just look for a better one, spend some 10, 15, maybe even 30 minutes to find that nice picture, and that's how it's going to be better. So I think these are really good because they already have Japanese letters and they have details already, so we can just pick those up. I'm going to save it so that you guys can check my profile and grab the same one if you need. And don't be afraid to download more than one. Download like 10 pictures so that once you're in Photoshop, you just try if this one works, if this one doesn't. Another good thing I'm looking at whenever I'm looking for pictures is don't be afraid to take inspiration from all these pins. You're not like, it's not stealing. You just find something. It's hard to imagine cover art as it is. You just kind of look for that little inspiration and just kind of build from there. So for example, if I see this picture and I like it, I analyze what I like about it. I like how it's white and blue and how there's like regular text. So look at these pictures, recognize nice color schemes, recognize little things, and the color schemes are really good because if we just scroll down, we see that the dark blue and pink works really good. Or for example, we see pink, like you usually wouldn't go for a pink sample pack art, but if you would do, it would be unique, and you see you already have a reference of how it should be looking. For example, I really like these colors, so I can basically just download this picture and use those same colors for my own cover art. Another good tip, if you really just want a sample pack really quickly, you want it to look good, you don't want to spend much time on it, look for these type of pictures. They're really ambient, kind of just nothing really, they just kind of are. And if you put a gradient over them, they most of the time work really good. It's nothing super creative, but it looks good and it gets the job done. Okay, now once I have all the pictures that I need, which is gonna go into Photoshop and go to a new file, and we're gonna set 3000 to 3000, and these bits are not really, they don't matter. So what I usually love to do is to figure out a name. So usually I have a client that has already a name, but you have your own text. So for example, today we're gonna have text, I guess we're gonna call it silent. And why text is so important, because some fonts are very tall and some are very wide, and I like to start with the text so I have an understanding of where to put the pictures and how big they should be, how much space the text should be. So there's a lot of different fonts. For example, we have really thin ones, we have really tall ones. So it's up to you which one you choose, but just be mindful how much space. So for if the name is really long, then I would use a tall font. For example, if we add a couple words, if we call it silent memory, then it would make sense to use a tall font. Then we could put it like this, just as a big part. And you see we already have half of the square is filled up, so we're gonna have less room for the actual pictures. But if the text is really simple, like for example story, then it would make sense to use a regular font like this, or for example a wide font. And now we have more place for the picture. So just be mindful, and I suggest figuring out a text before, at least that works for me. So we're going to use silent, and I'm just going to go through some of the fonts to see which one I like. So there's a lot of interesting fonts such as this one. I also really like how this one looked, but for the sake of the video, because a lot of people don't have a lot of fonts, as since this is a beginner video, I'm gonna use one of my favorite fonts. And why is it my favorite? Is because it works nearly every time. It's Monument Extended. You can find it on this website. It's called 1000 font. You can stretch it, you can manipulate it. It looks really good. It's super simple, but it works a lot of times. So once we have the text, I usually like to pick up a square, and I hold shift to make it a round square and put it as white. We press Ctrl A, and now Ctrl D and Ctrl T, and we hold Alt to make as big as you want it to be. This is basically you mapping out how big you want your cover to be, and I'm gonna lower the opacity. And now I have an understanding of how big the text should be, how big the picture should be. It's basically like a guide that you can just turn off. Now I'm gonna go back to the square. I'm gonna hold Alt and just drag it. We're duplicating it, and we're gonna press to the square, and you just start mapping out the places for your pictures. So once you got it kind of placed out, you can still make some changes. You can make some more squares, less squares, and just kind of follow the process. So this is not my final cut, but we're gonna change it later as we see the pictures and how they work. But for now, we're gonna increase the opacity on all of them, and we're gonna start bringing in some pictures. So what you wanna do is find this square that you wanna put it in, put the picture around it, and hold Alt. And in the middle, you're gonna see this little thing. Just click it, and it's gonna automatically go to it. So you see now it's only in the boundaries of the square. And now I see that this picture is really nice looking, so we're gonna increase the square a little bit. Once you got most of your pictures in place, just don't forget to leave out some space, like here. Maybe I'm gonna cut some place here for those details, and maybe Japanese letters and anything that you want. Just if you want to make your cover a little bit better, don't just smash up a bunch of pictures. Leave some space for little details. So it doesn't really look that good, but we just gotta trust the process. And we're gonna go here and add a gradient map. Now, most of you are probably already familiar with this. It's just kind of a selection of colors that will be applied to the whole picture. So most of the time it's just black and white, and it's very easy to use. You just drag them, kind of changing them. You can double tap to change the color, and you can add new colors by pressing. So yeah, it's not really that difficult. The best color combinations, in my opinion, are kind of blue to sky blue to purple, or red to orange. But as I said, you can go to Pinterest and recognize those color patterns that you like, and you can use them in your own cover art. Once you're done with your gradient, don't be afraid if it doesn't look the best. You can still change it along the way with the process. You can press Ctrl I to invert the pictures and see how they look. So we're gonna rasterize this later by just kind of clicking it and saying okay. Now we can do anything we want to it, and I'm gonna select only the parts that I want. We're gonna hold Alt to duplicate it a couple of times. hold Control and click to finish the selection, and go here, mask. And now you delete this, and you only have the small object. We're gonna press Control I, and we're gonna put it to screen. We can put it basically anywhere. Now, a lot of beginner designers, they see a lot of details and they see a lot of text and they're like, where do you get them from? Well, I've saved a good text from Studio Nate one time and it looks like this, all rights reserved. You can kind of pause the video and type it in and send it to yourself. So in the future, when you're doing design, you can just copy and paste this. And once you go into Photoshop, you go to text, and instead of pressing, you just kind of select it and you just press Ctrl V, and then now you have all this text. And if you go to properties, and if you don't have properties, go to window and press properties, you can change the text. And this part where all the text is to the sides, it looks really good, and you can just adjust the sizing here by dragging these. You can also change the size of the letters, and it will change how much is it. And once you have kind of the idea going, then you can take the original square that you did and just make a new square right next to it. You're gonna select this area and you wanna get a twice as thin line, and how you do it is you basically just duplicate it and it will stick on the middle. So you just delete the old one, and now you have this thinner line that's gonna show precisely how much you need space between these pictures. And if you do everything by these lines, then the whole artwork will just look neat and tidy. You can take one of these squares and go to properties, go to the stroke, put it as white, just do it like a little bit, maybe 10 or 5, it's up to you. And then as a fill, do it as gradient and go here, put 0. And now you have this gradient, but once you put it under the actual gradient, it will become like this. So it's a really cool detail that you can apply. And now you see we have a little bit of space between here and here, and we can stretch the text, but usually this font doesn't really look that good. It looks better when it's stretched horizontally, but it's not a problem. We're gonna make it look good. You just leave this space for small details similar to these, but we're just gonna put like sample library by somebody, and it's not really visible, but it's gonna add a little bit of cool stuff. If you put it as this one, then it's going to automatically put everything to each corner, but you can also do this. Don't forget while you're working to press Ctrl S so you don't lose all your progress. So that is easier for you. You see there's a lot of different elements in here, and sometimes it's really easy to get confused, but what you can do is just select all of them, just check if you're checking the right things. Now you just press Ctrl and Shift, select them and press Ctrl G, and now you can move them as a group, and you can just put them above the gradient part because you want the text to stay blue. Only the gradient, yeah, this part is going to be under because we want to have the color. So you see how much the picture has changed. At first we was trying something different, but in the process we came up with something completely different. So don't try to pursue something that you think in your head. Just kind of go with the process and you're gonna find something even better. You can also add effects to the pictures under the gradient. It's going to change how they look. For example, you can press Ctrl M and change the contrast. You can also add blur to the pictures. Now, I think the best idea is done. So we're just gonna press Ctrl Shift and select everything and put it in a group. And we're gonna duplicate it, Ctrl S to save, just in case. And we're gonna convert it to, either you can press Ctrl E and it's gonna turn into a picture, but you will lose all the elements. Or you can press Convert to Smart Object and it's gonna allow you to change the things in the future, but it weighs a lot. Yeah, so to change, you just double click and go back and change, click and click Save. Now we can experiment a little bit, we can invert it, we can press Ctrl U and change the color. And it's pretty much done. Most of these like detailed posters, they don't require a texture because they look good without it. But if you want to add a texture, you obviously can. You can press screen or you can press exclusion. Basically screen, it gets rid of the black color. So the black color that is here, it just gets rid of it. But you see we also have a gray, and if you hit exclusion, it's gonna also affect the white. So we have a text, it's completely white. So if we put screen, it doesn't make any difference. But if we put exclusion, it adds the texture to the white as well. It doesn't really add much texture to the color, but it is what it is. Play around with how much texture do you want. I personally don't really like a lot of texture, like when it's completely trashed, but a lot of people do. So it's completely up to you. And once you really like your final product, you can press Ctrl, hold it, select it, convert it to a smart object again, and you can just add a little bit of noise to it. It just adds a little bit of that grainy feel if you want. What you can also do is we have our cover art and we can go to adjustments. If you don't have adjustments, go to window and find adjustments and go to threshold. Now it makes everything black and white, but if we add a little bit of blur, for example, 1 or 2, and now we play with the threshold, we can see how it starts to kind of blend everything together and it looks really cool. And you can add a color on top of it. Just any color, hit darken or multiply and just play with the colors. For example, if I go for orange, and we can also add a texture underneath it. If we put the color not as multiply but as darken, it's going to affect a little bit of the white part of the texture. So now it looks even more kind of vintage and roughed up. You can also play with the opacity. It makes it look even more vintage. It's up to you. Now we can click save. As more we increase, we see that the texture is showing even more and more. So you can go as vintage as you want. And yeah, that's one of the cool tricks that you can do once you finish your artwork. Just add a little bit of blur, a threshold, and maybe a texture, and it's gonna bring a completely different look to your cover art. So this is the cover art. I know it's not really my usual thing. This is kind of a different style from mine and from the videos before, but I think as a beginner, if you just want yourself a nice cover art, most people go for this style, and it takes a little bit of time, but it's not very hard. So I just wanted to make something that anybody can just hop into Photoshop and do and make themselves a great cover art for their sample library. Now, whether you're selling cover art to somebody or you just making it for yourself, good thing is to add a YouTube thumbnail and the Instagram story. So what they do is, first of all, we're going to export it, and then we're going to go to File, New, and we're going to put it 1920 and 1080. And we're also going to put the opposite, 1080 and 1920. So this is going to be an Instagram story, and this is going to be a YouTube thumbnail. So you put the picture, you just make it a little bit smaller and convert it to a smart object. Now you duplicate it and make it a lot bigger. You add 7 or 8 Gaussian blur, and you add the same amount of noise. You put 8 of uniform monochromatic noise and go and makes it a little bit nicer on the background. And to the main picture, you just add a little bit of drop shadow. Not too much, not too little, it's up to you. If you want to copy my settings, go ahead. There's no right answer, just kind of see what looks best for you. It looks okay. I would even drop it maybe to 70. And now you can hold Control, select them, press Ctrl C, go to your other project and press Ctrl V. And now you press Ctrl A, put it in the middle, adjust the size of the background. And now you have yourself an Instagram story to promote your sample pack, and you have a clean thumbnail for your YouTube video. And if you're doing it for yourself, you basically already have a great thumbnail. But if you're selling cover art, these type of things are only going to add to your value, because you don't have to charge for it. But if somebody buys a cover art from you and you give them a thumbnail and a story for free, they're more likely to come back to you. So it's very easy. And why we did it as a smart object, because you can save it and just put it as thumbnail template. So you can just put it on your computer, and next time you make a cover art, you just double click, change the picture, click save, and it automatically makes you a new thumbnail. So you don't even have to do the process over and over. You just save it, put it on your computer, and after you're done, it takes 2 seconds, and it's gonna add so much value to you as a graphic designer. Enjoy.